Hello and welcome back to Snapshot, your place for all news, history, and just chatting about quad ball. Today is my Nationals prediction show, joined by two very special guests. Let's get into all the predictions for Nationals. Hit the subscribe button if you have not already. More content coming in the weeks to come. Very excited for Nationals. Let's get into the predictions. All right, welcome in. We are reviewing the pools for Nationals today. My name is Jackson Vaughn. I'm joined by two very special guests. Go ahead and introduce yourselves. Levon, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Levan Tsiskarishvili. I play with James Madison University. I chase for them, and in the summer I play with the Admirals.
My name is Ojas Turekar. I play for Trainwreck. Used to play on University of Illinois. Over the summer, I play with the Chicago Prowl.
Awesome. Well, Ojas, welcome back to the show. Thank you for coming back. And Levon, thank you for coming on. It's going
Of
to be
course, of
exciting to
course.
talk about four different groups of Nationals teams. And we will start with College D1. I think some of these, aside from club competitive, in my opinion, these are going to be some of the most interesting groups and probably some of the more high stakes games. Right off the bat, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The format is not obvious. So there are four pools, two with four teams each and two with three teams. However, these two three-team pools, every team will play the other two teams in their group for two games, and will play one cross-pool game against someone from Pool D. So Texas State is going to play Rutgers, Boston is going to play Blue Jay, and Missouri is going to play Brandeis, giving everyone a total of three games. From there, it's not top two in every pool advance, it's the top eight regardless of pool, with tiebreaker being record, and then I believe it's quad ball differential. So knowing that, and then knowing how, even though the groups are made for schedule purposes, which group immediately stands out as either the group of death or what's going to have the most interesting games in it? Levon, what do you think?
I think a lot of them have like a top dog within them. Obviously, like you can argue that in college quad ball, there's like the three top teams. You have Virginia, you have Creighton, and you have Texas State. And then that's kind of why Pool D is like I don't know who's going to come out on top there. Obviously, you have Brandeis coming in like they came at set in second at qualifiers, but they were disqualified. But then they did get that D1 bid, and then you don't know. Like obviously, Blue Jays, like they're part of the Creighton program. They're going to be well coached, and then Rutgers has been having a good year. So I don't know which of those three teams is going to come out on top within their respective games.
For sure. I would also agree. Pool D is definitely the most unpredictable one because I believe Rutgers and Blue Jays played last year and ended up the very close Rutgers victory. I'm sure Blue Jays, even though there will be, a lot of new faces knowing the Creighton program and their promotion strategies, I guess, to Creighton. But I'm sure there will be some sentiment of, getting revenge. That'll be interesting. Brandeis surprised so many people at Howard County qualifiers, but of course, as we talked about, their bid getting revoked. I'm sure they will have a lot of things to prove and to say, oh, sure, our bid got revoked, but we are still the same team. And Rutgers, who was expected to be uh, the second best team at Howard County, will certainly have some interesting matchups there. I'm also a really big fan of Pool B here
Oh,
because
interesting.
Sam Houston State coming in as quote unquote the four seed, if I understand correctly, is absolutely bonkers to me because they are such a great team. I think they could be giving Creighton their closest game in pool play, and Harvard. Uh, as I said in the last time, they were my underdog to outperform, and gladly they did. So Sam Houston Harvard rematch from 2024 semifinals, or was it 2023 semifinals? Oh,
2023, actually. I think you split the difference. Um, Anyway, yeah, I think Brandeis in Pool D is a really interesting team to me because I think there's a world where they go 3-0 in their group play where they can beat Blue Jay. We just saw them, right, beat Rutgers at the qualifier, go second place, only losing to Virginia. And then they have the crossplay game against Missouri, who I think I'm lower on than most. I think Missouri just hasn't done a ton outside of the qualifier to prove themselves as they have in years past. Not saying that Missouri can't beat Brandeis, but I think Brandeis is actually in a really good position here to maybe go 3-0, make it out of groups with an undefeated record, which would seed them well in bracket play. And then, yeah, you mentioned Pool B, and I feel like it is going to come down to that Sam Houston Harvard game, because even though it's not the top two teams of every group, every pool is going to have probably a 2-1 team or a 1-2 team, and that could be the difference between advancing or not. You figure Sam Houston and Harvard probably will both beat Vermont. I don't expect either of them to beat Creighton. You mentioned, right, Sam Houston might be able to give Creighton a run for their money. I think Creighton is still clearly the better team, even though Sam Houston's had a good year. So you're looking at Harvard, Sam Houston. Sam Houston has been ranked higher for most of the year. They've been the better team in my eyes. But Harvard certainly has the ability to beat them. A former national champion, right, has played Sam Houston, beat them 2 years ago at nationals, as you mentioned. I like Sam Houston in that match. I'm personally predicting them to go 2-1 in this group and advance. But I agree, it wouldn't be a shocker to see Harvard win that game. Pool A is the most interesting to me because I think this is there's a clear 1, 2, 3, 4 in my opinion in this order. I think Virginia is probably better than Illinois, who's probably better than Crucio, who's probably better than RPI. But there's a probably with all of those. Where like you could tell me Illini pulled an upset on Virginia, and I could see it, and I could see Crucio pulling an upset on Illini. I could see RPI pulling an upset on Crucio, and I don't think that's insane to say. Um, so if there was a dark horse from this group, I'm looking at. I think it's more likely that Crucio beats Illini than Illini beats Virginia. In my opinion, I think Virginia is probably too battle tested to lose in pool play. I think if we see Virginia lose, they will be in bracket play. In my opinion. So I'm going Virginia. I'm still taking chalk. If I had to pick an upset, I would take Crucio over Illini. Um, just because Crucio, I think, is like they're definitely having a breakout year, and I think that might catch Illini by surprise.
No, Titus is absolutely a monster. I just
Yeah.
played with him last weekend at the like App 5 Rust Belt merger games. It was all unofficial, it was mostly fun games, but like every time Titus checked in, I was like, damn. I got to watch him from the sidelines. I got to play with him, and I was like, he's really good at quad ball. I know. And he's not the only one. They have other people on that team that are going to make plays.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree that Crucio upsetting Illinois would make more sense than Illinois beating Virginia.
Yeah, and then I'm curious, was Zach Blue playing that weekend as well?
No, he wasn't.
He's not. Is he injured?
We were missing him. I have no idea. I didn't pry too much. They're just like, yeah, we're missing our tall guy, and I was like,
Gotcha.
I'm here.
Okay. Well, if Zachary's there, I'm sure he'd be an asset. If not, right, Titus Chan and the rest of Crucio on their own, still more than capable of holding their own in D1. So with that, I mean, let's pick 8 teams. Who do we think is going to advance to bracket play? I feel like there's the clear top 3. We can all probably agree Virginia, Creighton, Texas State will be playing in bracket play. I think we could all agree there. But then we got to pick 5 more teams. Are there any in particular that stand out to y'all as teams that are shoo-ins or maybe bubble teams to make it to bracket play?
I think I had to play against Harvard and Boston at Harvard qualifiers, and I know Boston dropped after Harvard qualifiers and like the fast break rankings, and that's mostly because they did suffer injuries. But D'Onofrio is gonna be playing. They had another guy who broke out this year, Sciabara, I think is his name, Sciaraba. He's been.
Yeah.
I looked at the stats for MQC, and he was like, I think he had like 70 goals or something. I might be off, but. He was balling and he wasn't there. But hopefully he's gonna those two. I think if they have those two at California, they're gonna beat some teams. They're gonna play really well. And then Harvard, they're a really well coached team. Their beaters are really great. Their chasers are gonna make plays. Both those teams beat us, and it was closer against Harvard, but Boston did thoroughly throttle us, and I think that they're gonna take that mentality to California.
4 and 5, because I think for this entire season we have had the big 3 established, and I think as the season has progressed more, at least in my opinion, we have gotten clear towards a 4 and 5, and in my eyes that would be Sam Houston and University of Illinois, because Sam Houston in the fast break game is absolutely lethal, and Illinois in the beating game takes it. Actually, there was a couple of fun things I wanted to mention about Pool A that I completely forgot earlier.
Go for it.
Uh, One thing, Illini and Crucio will have a common link where both or one of Illini star players and at least one of Crucio's star player, Titus and Ariana, went to the same high school. So
Really? Wow.
that was the most random connection I found out, and it will be very interesting to see them catch up. And
That's
I
so
was
cool.
also going to say, where UVA certainly has the advantage, the upper hand, I do think UVA versus Illini will be the battle of the beaters. And in my opinion, we'll see the best match beaters in pool play.
Oh, okay.
I think I can agree with that if Rhett's not going. He hasn't played at all this year for Virginia. I think he's been studying abroad, but I don't think David lets him not go to this. If Rhett goes and Joey, he's been playing beater for a full 2 years now. I don't know if any team can get close to that. They're just, I don't like playing Rhett, man. He's a monster. That dude is like the difference between our games being like 230 to like 20 and like 70 to 150. He,
Yeah, certainly, Red Krovitz and Joey Bay, definitely, if one of, if not the best beater pair in the college game right now. It'll be very interesting to see them there. Yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only ones that hold a candle to that, as you mentioned, Illini's beaters are really good. Creighton's beaters are very good. But other than that, I would agree. I think, yeah, you bring up a good point about the beater game between Illini and Virginia. And if Illinois was to win that game, they're going to have to outbeat the Virginia beaters, which is easier said than done. That said, I think you're right. I mean, if anyone was going to do it, it could be an Illini or a Creighton. But we will see. Either way, I do like Illini to advance. I think you're right about Sam Houston. Levon, you brought up Boston. I think that's probably a good shout. I like them to beat Missouri, and I like them to beat Blue Jay in the crossplay. And then from Pool D, I'm assuming it's still going to be 2 teams from every group, unless there's some weird, crossplay shenanigans. I like Brandeis to go 3-0 in this group and take the upset on Rutgers. And then actually, that might mean Rutgers misses if they have to play Texas State in crossplay. That would be interesting. Does Rutgers miss bracket play if they play? If they play Texas State in crossplay, I think they're going to lose that game. Right? Texas State's probably going 3-0. They'll probably beat Blue Jay. I would think they'd be favored. But then it comes down to the Brandeis game. If Brandeis wins, I think Rutgers misses bracket play. And then you look at, or it might come down to like a point differential between them and a Crucio and a Harvard. What do y'all think about the prospect of Rutgers potentially missing bracket play?
There's a lot of good
Uh,
teams, you know.
There
There's
is.
14 teams going, and only 8 advance, and a lot of them are good teams, especially this year, because most teams that are going are teams that are like, yeah, we have at least a fighting chance at competing. So a lot of the teams, like for example, my JMU, where we realized maybe it's not worth it to go to California and play those more non-competitive games. So all these teams think that they have a chance, most likely, and
Yeah.
only 8 of them get to go. I wouldn't be surprised, like especially like realizing that they're gonna have to play Texas, they have to play Brandeis, and then who knows how Blue Jays gonna play. That's a rough schedule for Rutgers.
Yeah. I think if I had to make a prediction right now, I'm saying Brandeis beats Rutgers. And then, I mean, who do we think is going to have the least bad loss? Is it like, because then it goes down to point differential. Who's going to play closest against their next opponent? We've said Crucio can play Illini pretty close. I bet you the Rutgers Brandeis game will be pretty close. I feel like we stay safe for the purposes of these predictions. We'll say Rutgers advances. Um, Although I think they'd be probably the 8 seed advancing. Which, speaking of, let's take a look at the bracket. So when it gets to this point in bracket play, the teams are reseeded 1 through 8. Groups don't matter at all. So say the number 1 seed, let's say for this purpose it's Virginia. We'd have Virginia as the 1 seed, maybe the 2 seed's probably a Creighton, 3's a Texas State. That 4-5, this is an interesting game. let's assume it's the 4-5 that's been the case all year. Illini and Sam Houston. And we'll tackle that game first. But let's say for this thought experiment, Illini and Houston are 4-5, and then maybe we have Virginia Rutgers round one, and then who else did we say? We said Boston and I'm forgetting someone. Who did I miss? Boston. Oh, and wait, we got Sam Houston. Who did I miss?
Was it Harvard?
Oh, Brandeis.
Brandeis. I think the Harvard versus Brandeis. I think those two. Which one takes the 8th slot? Or what's the other one? Boston. I think those three are competing for that 8th slot.
Could be. Instead of talking about like hypotheticals for these games, because there's so much that could happen with all of that, let's pick our 4 semifinals teams, and then we'll go from there. Do either of you have a debate with me saying Virginia, Creighton, Texas State are going to be in the semifinals? Is there any debate there?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so. So let's tackle. I think there's a good shot that Illini Sam Houston happens as the 4-5, and I just think it's an interesting game to talk about. So let's talk about that. If Illini Sam Houston happened in the quarterfinals, who would you have advancing to play, we'll say Virginia in this example?
Me being, completely, absolutely unbiased, as if I did not go there about 6 months ago, I will. As being as unbiased as I can, I do like Illini's odds going there. Sam
Mhm.
Houston is a very physical team. They're very quick in transition. So by no means is it going to be a cakewalk. But I think after seeing Illini play Creighton basically within flag runner range at qualifiers, because I think the final score was 165 Creighton to 120 Illini.
Yeah.
And the set score was like 150 or 160, something like that. So that I can look at being a very super close game, which I think Sam Houston, to their credit, has been the only team outside of the top three to beat one of the top three in Texas State. And they have
Mhm.
consistently played Texas State very, very close. So I think it'll be an overall interesting game, but I think Illini can take it there.
Yeah, I do agree, especially like I don't know that much about either of these teams, but I've heard a lot more praise for Illini over the past years and this year. But when you're a fast break team, like you guys are describing Sam Houston, and you're playing against a team with good beaters, is that really a strength anymore? I mean,
Good
um,
point.
that's like the worst thing for a fast break team is teams that are going to be able to get back on defense or make those throws, make those beats. Um, but I know Sam Houston, I got to ref one of their games last year at USQ Cup, and they played really, really well, and they had a lot of really good games. So I wouldn't be surprised if they took it either.
Yeah. I think I lean Illini for that reason that the matchup just favors them in terms of the beater game. I think if Sam Houston's got great beaters. I've played against them many times in my career. I think Illini's are going to be a little bit better, and I think it might be hard for Sam Houston to get control because when you have the control, the fast break can work better, especially with someone like Andrew Acosta, who is Sam Houston's leading scorer, who loves the fast break. Someone like Andrew, when you have dodgeball control, it makes scoring that much easier. I think it's gonna be really hard to wrestle away control from the Illini. So I think I agree, and I like Illinois to advance. In the semifinals, we're gonna say for this experiment, it's Virginia and Illinois on one side, and then it's Creighton, Texas State on the other. Uh, let's go to the other side first. Creighton, Texas State. We saw this once earlier in the year. Creighton took it. I want to say it was Golden Goal and Diamond Cup. Um, Not to mention Creighton also traveled to Texas to play that, so it was basically an away game. Um, what do y'all think there? Does Creighton win it again, or do you think Texas State has the ability to get the revenge?
I mean, it's hard to count out the last year's winners, right? That
Right.
was like you know, being like obviously they went up like what was it like 10-1 in the beginning of that game. Being able to
Against
stifle a
UVA, yeah.
great team like that is, obviously the game got closer, but that's in itself a huge achievement, though who has Creighton really played this year? I don't really know. Was it just really the qualifier that they had the competitive games?
Well, they had
I
that,
don't
and
know.
then they had the one game against
Diamond Cup.
Texas State where they beat
Oh
Texas State.
yeah, I forgot about that. I mean, yeah, they also already beat them.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's hard not to see. Like, I feel like Texas State is kind of. I'm not gonna say they're not a top three team, but I feel like this is like the first year that they've kind of been like put into that top team discussion where like, oh, there's a top
Mm,
three now, not a top two, but like the top two teams are still the top two teams, and I really don't see anyone else other than those two teams making it to the end.
interesting. Ojas?
Biased because I play beater. Also think the key for Texas State to win this game is going to be in the beater game because the beater duo of Ryan Clear and Derek Durking is just so lethal. Man, it being on the other side or the receiving end of that beater duo does not sound like a fun time.
Yeah.
The key will be last year we saw David Avila put on the black headband. I wonder if that is
Mm,
a tactic they have just been, hiding up their sleeve, just waiting to be like, oh, maybe we can take Creighton by surprise here. Maybe that can happen.
that's something
No
I could see.
disrespect to
Go
Texas
ahead, go
State
ahead.
beaters, but Creighton beaters just seem to be a notch higher right now.
Sure. I would say so that's something I could definitely see David, doing. I could see that happening. The reason I think that is because Texas State's chasers are some of the best scorers in the sport, in my opinion. A lot of them played for San Antonio Soldados. Need I remind you, the team that won MLQ last summer. So we've got champions on both sides here. We've got the reigning, USQ champs, and then most of the reigning MLQ champs. You're putting those head to head. I mean, it's going to be a bloodbath as it always is. I actually lean Texas State here. It's hard to take the underdog, especially when you're going against the reigning champs, and especially when Creighton won earlier. I like Texas State, um, mostly on the fact that yes, Derek Deerking, Ryan Clearly, some of the best beaters in the sport. That said, Texas State has the ability to, even when they lose the beater game, their chasers are all talented enough to make plays in spite of that. Whoever's got the ball, a lot of them are able to either get around or make shot. They've got shooters, they've got drivers, they've got dunkers. They can beat you in so many ways, and I actually think that might make the difference. Where yeah, I think Creighton's beaters are going to win a majority of exchange, or maybe not a majority, but they're going to win a lot of those exchanges in the beater game and shut down a lot of plays. And yet, I think Texas State has the capability to still overcome that. Not saying that Creighton doesn't, but I think Texas State is going to be prolific in that area. So I would actually take Texas State here. Um, but I think I'm outvoted 2-1. I think y'all went for Creighton. So we'll send them through to the final. Virginia, Illinois. Do we see an upset here, or are the Cavaliers heading back to the final?
Um, I got to play UVA a lot, and what I've noticed this year is that like I mentioned it with like Creighton not really playing as much. UVA hasn't really played anybody this year. The hardest thing that they played was Brandeis, and
Mhm.
they played the same game that they've been playing all year, which is outbeat the other team, get the ball, run down the field and score. We haven't really seen a half court from them at all this year. Um, and that's what's going to matter in these games. They're going to be playing against those beater pairs that are going to be able to at least not let them utterly dominate and allow those fast breaks every possession. So I'm really interested to see UVA's fast breaks. And are they going to be able to get them, or will they have to rely on a half court game that didn't work for them last year because they didn't have to use it at all?
Right.
Um,
Were to go, give the odds to UVA. But I also think if in any of the four any of the playoffs and other than the finals, I guess, an upset was to happen, it would be in this game.
Yeah, I think, and if any team was going to do it, I think it would be Illinois. I think there's a chance that Sam Houston could pull it off, especially if Sam Houston matches up with a Texas State, someone that they're familiar with. But outside of that, I think you're right. I think Illinois causing an upset over one of the top three is where it's going to happen. And yeah, I like Levon, your point about Virginia really hasn't played that tough of a schedule. In my mind, I don't think that's going to count against them as much because they are so talented. It may come back to bite them in the final, but I think Illinois is going to when they play a Creighton or a Texas State, but I think they can out talent anyone not named those two teams. Um, as good as Illinois has been and as great of a year that they've had, I do think Virginia is going to get it and move on to the final. And so we'd get a rematch, Virginia versus Creighton. Um, do we see it going differently this time? Does Creighton go back to back, or does Virginia get their revenge? What do y'all think?
I mean, it's kind of like the same point I just said. Does their half court game make up for the fact that they're probably not going to be able to do those fast break plays anymore? I highly doubt. There's a 0% chance they're able to run the offense they've been running all year in these games. I absolutely think that they have the capability to win. But last year, I was thinking the same thing, and then I saw them go down, and then by the time they realized, hey, we have to win this game not on our legs, but with, playing better quad ball, it was too late. Will they make that same mistake? I doubt it. They're too smart. David's too smart at least to make that same mistake twice of thinking that he can play this bully ball, because they won't. They're playing an equal team. They just have to treat it that way.
I think the given that we have Virginia Creighton final, I think the result will depend on two people who are studying abroad who can be there,
Mm,
named Red Krovitz and Chantal Sedlars. I think if they can be there, those two players are such talented that they can change the tide by themselves.
yeah, I think that's fair, and I hate to break it down to, well, if this player's there, then they'll win. I hate for that to be the delineator, but I think you're right. I think those two are impact makers enough that there's so much talent on both sides, but those two in particular are high level players for Virginia, and could swing the tide enough. And I agree with the point as well. Virginia's not going to be complacent. Yes, they haven't played that tough of a schedule all year long, but right, going down either 10-0 or 10-1 and then still making it a game last nationals, I agree. They're not going to be naive to let that happen again, or they're certainly going to come in with more of a strategy. If I'm the coaching staff for Virginia, I was game planning for this game in mind for most of the weekend. Probably prepping for Texas State, film planning for maybe an Illini, but you can use bully ball, as you said, against most of these teams other than a Creighton, who the run ended last year against. So I think Virginia's coming in with that game plan, and because of that, I think you're right. I think I'm going to go with Virginia to win it. This mirrors we had UTSA versus Harvard 2 years in a row, and Harvard lost the first time, won the second. It would be the same thing if it happened this year, where Creighton UVA 2 years in a row, Creighton wins the first, Virginia wins the second. We will see. It sounds like we're all going with Virginia, maybe partially based on who's available, who's not. I like the Cavaliers at full strength to get it done. Any last things before I move on to College D2? Okay. We're going to move through this one a little bit quicker. One, because D1 took a lot longer than I expected, and two, because there's just less teams here. So D2, this is more of a simple round robin. Not where everyone plays everyone. Well, maybe it's not that simple. But every team here is going to play 3 games, except for UTSA, who's playing 4, and that's just a math thing. That's not UTSA gets an extra game because they feel like it. It's just that's how the math works out. I want to talk about what are the 4 teams here, because so how this works, you'll have the round robin, and then the 4 teams will advance to the semis and the finals for College D2. Who are the 4 teams? Who are the favorites to advance out of this pool? There's a couple that I have in my mind, but I want to hear what y'all think.
I'd like
I
to.
was really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Levan.
No, no, you got it. You got it.
I was gonna say I really, really liked UCLA's performance at the South qualifier. I think it was in Garland.
Mm,
Uh, it was because it's really tough when you don't get to play a lot of games in your region, and they showed up and they showed out. It was really exciting to see that. I think with that, in no particular order, I would say UCLA UT, UTSA, and the fourth one is a really big toss-up. And just because I I cannot make a well enough guess, I will go Minnesota because I gotta rip Midwest somewhere.
Sure. Levon, who you got?
I'm gonna play Brown. I got to play against them. Karsten, he played really, really well. He's been playing super well this entire year, whether it be chasing, keeping, seeking, especially seeking. Um, I got to watch him seek at Howard County, and he was playing really well. That's a free 3 points every game. They almost got the D1 berth. I think it was them versus. I think it was. I don't know. I think it was RPI.
Mhm.
It was a close game. It was a golden goal game for that D1 berth. They're a good team. They're in D2 out of sheer fact that they didn't get the golden goal. If they
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see how they play. I think that they do have what it takes to be a top 4 team out of these 7. And then I agree that UCLA home turf. They played well this season. They're probably gonna have more people than these other teams, so that's a big factor. They don't have to travel. So we'll see probably good quad ball out of them.
Yeah, I agree with the point about Brown because they played solid in MQC all year. And then, yes, at the qualifier, getting really close to qualifying for D1. I agree. Karsten has been borderline unstoppable for this team. Definitely a all-star of MQC, I would say. I think Brown led by him, and agree. I agree. The secret game, I think, is an interesting point, especially in D2. Um, because beater play is typically not as high in D2 as D1, which means that the better seeker is probably going to catch. Whereas in D1 games, you may not see a catch. D2, I can almost assure you there will be a catch, unless the flag runner is just really good. But because of Karsten, I think Brown might get that free 3 points every game, and that might be enough to swing a D2 game, especially when Brown's got plenty of capable scorers as well. I hear y'all on UTSA, UT, and UCLA. I like all of those as well. Um, but as much as you may think it's a toss up, Ojas, but I would agree with Levon here, where I think it's going to be Brown in the 4 slot. Even Brown might be a 2 or a 3. I think that is the top 4. I don't see Minnesota, Marquette, or Emerson being able to steal one of those, unless there's shenanigans with the schedule and this team had an easier road, whatever. But I think the top 4 is UTSA, Brown, Texas, and UCLA would be my personal way of ordering it.
I did
That
completely
said,
blank out on Karsten. Oh, sorry,
no, go
the
ahead.
delay.
Go
I
ahead.
was going to say I did completely blank out on Karsten and Brown. I will agree. I will take Brown to be in the top 4, definitely.
Sure. No worries. Um, so there's no way of telling, which ones are going to be matched up with who. I'm going to put UTSA and UT on separate ones just because we've seen that game a million times. At least I've seen it a million times coming from the Southwest. And I want to see new opponents. So we'll say, just for fun, UTSA versus Brown, and then Texas versus UCLA. So UTSA and Brown, if that were to be the matchup, who do you think advances to the D2 final? For me, I like Brown here. I think Karsten might honestly be the best player in D2 at this point. Just because I think Brown was talented enough to be a D1 team and they weren't this year. So I think Karsten might have a field day against UTSA. I've heard UTSA is getting some players off of injury back, which could make things interesting. Especially because they still have some veteran players from their championship team a few years ago. There's still some of them playing. Um, and so I could see UTSA winning this, but I like Brown to advance to the final.
No, I agree. I don't know that much about UTSA, but they didn't make it out to USQ Cup last year. This year, it's still a long travel. I don't know how big their numbers are, but I'm assuming it's going to be a smaller roster. I think they've been playing with smaller rosters this season.
Yeah.
And I know Brown doesn't have the largest roster ever, but you're going to play those round robin games and having to wake up and play day 2. It's rough,
It is.
especially when you're on a smaller team. Last year, I had to do that. We played it was like 4 games day one, and then day two I wanted nothing to do with the complimentary game. It's brutal, and numbers are going to matter. And as you said, Carson, he's a great player. He's like especially again, yeah, D2. Like I seek in D2, and most of the time beaters aren't involved at all, and I love it. It's awesome. But we are gonna see better flag runners. Um,
Sure.
he saw Matt Cooper at qualifiers, and Matt Cooper he kind of bullied both of us. That was rough, and it took us a while to catch him. So will that level of flag runner play matter to him? Probably not. I think he's still a good seeker without it, but I think he's going to be. I think he's gonna, yeah, as you said, have a field day in the D2 bracket.
Yeah. And then UT and UCLA. I'll be honest, I can't remember who won this one at the Southwest qualifier. Do either of you know? I don't remember.
That's what Google's for.
Well, whoever it was, I'm not entirely sure. I could see that one going either way, honestly. I think UCLA, if they travel well, it is in San Francisco, which I know isn't the closest to Los Angeles, but if UCLA has the numbers, as well, UCLA was in the D2 final 2 years ago against Cal, so they might have some players with that experience. I think UCLA could probably beat UT to advance to the final. I don't feel great about that, but I would pick that. And then I'm ultimately going with Brown to win D2, in my opinion. I think they have the best roster. I think they have the best player as well. Um, I I I think UTSA could do it. I like Brown to get it done. But if you guys have any other thoughts, I'd love to hear them.
At Garland qualifier, uh, UCLA got a decent chunk of win over UTSA in a low scoring game.
Mhm.
It was, I think the score was like 120 to 60.
Yeah,
125 to 60.
I just pulled it up, and they played Texas. They lost to Texas 145 to 30, but they won the quad ball game there.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think UCLA does make it to the final. I would also favor Brown to get there, but I think because it looks like UCLA has got quite a few at the Garland qualifier. So I wonder if that'll be an interesting battle between unnamed, really good UCLA seeker for the lack of my knowledge and Karsten from Brown.
Sure.
I'd take Karsten. I'm gonna take Karsten. But I'm looking at it right now. It looks like the UCLA guy only caught once in the 5 games they played. Karsten, he's been catching all season. I think he's certainly tied for best seeker in college. I'm gonna plug myself there. I think I do a rather good job. No, but he's good at it. I don't think anybody in the D2 bracket's gonna touch him in the seeker game. If they're gonna send beaters out to stop him, then maybe they can have a chance. But then you're giving up the quad ball game, and they have good players there too. So I think it's Brown's bracket to lose. Will the numbers
I
matter?
agree.
Especially against UCLA. The numbers, I don't know how many they're going to bring, but it's like the closest they're going to get to a home tournament on this scale.
True.
So if they can bring a full 2 lines, that's going to matter.
Yeah. I think Brown's going to win. Even if UCLA does bring a full 2 lines, the one thing that I worry about is that they haven't played much this year. Brown being battle tested and knowing how to win, I think is going to matter quite a bit. UCLA going off of not much high level games, I think might come back to bite them. Let's move on. I'm going to skip over club competitive, partly for watch time, and partly for because I think it's going to be quicker to tackle club open. I think so. Club open. I'll quickly tackle the format. You've got a 5-team group in Pool T and a 4-team group in Pool U. But they're not doing the thing where like everyone plays 4 games total. It's just this group will play 4 games. Pool U will play 3 games. The top 3 teams in both groups advance. Now, I want to hear about potential upsets or dark horses. However, I I'm finding it hard to believe anyone other than Seattle Sirens wins Club Open. Um, I think Seattle Sirens. Some people have said that they're a borderline top 10 team in club, and they're playing in Open. They surprised a lot of people at the West qualifier. Um, and the teams that were close to them at the West, Copperheads, Lost Boys, and Breakers, none of them are playing in Club Open. So I think this is Seattle's bracket to lose. But if there's anyone else that can maybe make a run to the final, who do y'all think that would be? Or do you think I'm crazy that Seattle's going to win? What do y'all think?
I only know so much about club. I'm gonna be honest, especially Club Open. But I have heard really good things about Seattle. They won it last year. Again, I hate to be the guy that I feel like a broken record bringing up travel, but they traveled all the way out to Richmond and they won it in Club Open, and now they don't have to leave the state. So it's hard to see any other option. They played good games. I think I watched one or two of them online when they were streaming, and they looked good. It's hard to say that they didn't. I didn't really catch any names, but it's hard to see a good team and that wins consistently and count against them.
Yeah.
Going into the Open division did come as a shocker for me, but I did see some rumor mill on the Reddit, which was absolutely not credible, saying Seattle might have a smaller roster going to USQ Cup. So that could play into it, but regardless, I think Club Open division is Seattle's game to lose. I think if there were two teams who could uh, potentially face up against them in the finals, I could see Washups being there and Chicago United being there.
Yeah. And this is what the bracket is going to look like. Two teams are going to get a bye. You'll have some crossplay games in the semi, or that this would be the quarterfinal. Um, I agree. I think this is Seattle's to lose. I don't see anyone really holding a candle to that. I think Chicago United Apollos could be an interesting game. Chicago's had some decent developments this year. Ohio Apollos, I think Joseph Lombardi plays for them, who won the scoring title for MLQ last year. So maybe there's something that could happen there. Um, and all it takes in the open division in the D2, you really only need sometimes best player on the field can get it done. Um, of course, when you're going up someone like Seattle, who I think could be a D1 team, it's hard to win with that mentality. But yeah, I think we're all in agreement. This is Sirens to lose. Should be back-to-back Open champs. I'll be honest, even if they have a shorter roster, I think even if they're playing with 11, 12, a line and a half, I think they'll be fine. And that's no slight on the rest of Open Division. I just think Seattle's going to be that good. Any other things to add before we move on to Club Competitive? All right. Let's get to what might be the most interesting part of all of nationals, in my opinion. It's so funny because being in college, that was always the part I cared more about. Now, I don't play club, but having covered the sport the whole year, I found the club games to be more interesting this year. Um, Partly because there's been so much parity, and I think that's going to create so many storylines. For me, right off the bat, the things I noticed from this group, well, the two big things I noticed, Pool X, I think is Heat's pool by a country mile. I don't think any of these teams are going to be able to beat them. And Pool Z, I think, is the group of death. I could see four of these teams winning the group. No shade on Slice, but I could see four of these teams winning it. Do y'all see it the same way? Who do you think? What is the most? I guess the must watch group, and who are the teams you're most excited to look at?
Looking forward, obviously, to see DCQC. Those are my people.
Yeah.
But Reapers, honestly, they've kind
Yeah.
of they've exploded this year. I think they're 2-0 versus DCQC this year, which I don't think anyone expected. And I'm curious to see if they can hold up that success, and if they're going to make any other splash wins in pool play or bracket play.
Shout out Pool Y because I can really see. I mean, Boom Train has been a long known favorite to win it all this year. Dice has also been, uh, as they say, like as we have the big three in college. I feel like we've had the big four in club, where it has
I
been
agree.
Boom, Dice, Heat, and Rain, and Copperhead has been sneaking there now and then. But I think the top four, Dice has been like right there on the verge of beating these teams.
Yeah.
Dice also beating Rain so handily at campaign qualifiers.
Yeah.
Made some big noise for that. Reapers beating DCQC, like what was it, like 2 or 3 weekends after
Mhm.
DCQC played a golden goal game against Boom Train. That is going to be a very interesting group. And Vermont also coming off, I guess not the best qualifier they would have liked against at Champaign, but they played so many close games, and that just means they're right there at the cusp of something great happening. So I think I could see really big things happening from them. If I'm being completely honest, I don't know a whole lot about West Quad Ball. For my ignorance, apologies. I would love to know some more ball, but
It's hard to know. They haven't played a whole lot this year, and none of us are from the West Coast, so I don't think any of us are going to be super knowledgeable. In my opinion, so how this one works, at least pool play is a lot easier to understand than bracket play. Well, the seeding for bracket play that is. But how this one works is it's a full round robin. Every team plays 4 games, and then the bottom team in each group will be eliminated. I think for Pool X and Pool Z, I personally think it's easy to see. Um, Dragon Wolves, I think, will be the bottom team. I think Dragon Wolves have actually surprised me quite a bit over the last few weeks. Some of their qualifier was pretty good, as well as just some of the random games that they've picked up. Dragon Wolves have been a surprising team, a pleasant surprise to see in D1, one that I'm glad to see. And I could see them pulling an upset, maybe over a Lost Boys. Um, well, I was gonna say maybe a train wreck, but Ojas is here, so don't want to hurt his feelings too much. Um, and Pool Z, I think Slice is going to be the bottom team in my opinion. Uh, Not because I think Slice is a bad team, but because I think these other 4 teams are all more than capable of winning the group, and I think it's going to be hard for Slice to pick up wins in for the other teams. What's really a must-win game against Slice because it's really the only quote unquote easy game that they're going to have, just because the rest of the group is full of top tier teams. Pool Y, I think it's very interesting to say who's going to get last, who's not making it to bracket play. I think we'd all agree that Boom and Dice are probably the top 2. I think Reapers has solidified a solid third in this group. And then between Breakers and Vermont, I think it's hard to say because Breakers have the upside, in my opinion. But yeah, Vermont has played close games with a lot of club teams this year. I think that's hard to say. I think I would lean Vermont making it and Breakers getting eliminated. But again, that might partially be lack of West Coast knowledge. Um, do you guys see anything different other than Dragon Wolves, Breakers, and Slice for teams not making it?
I'd be surprised if Chaos didn't make it. They've played games this year, but they haven't won a whole lot. They've lost a lot
Yeah.
this year. They beat Reaper. I'm pulling it up right now. They did beat Reapers, but off of a flag catch. They lost handedly to DCQC. And a lot of their games are just over. It's either like games that they should win or games that they will lose.
Mm.
And so it's like it's hard to get like a good grasp on them. I know they've kind of like fluctuated this year on like who's going to what or like who's on the roster, but they haven't impressed me a whole lot. I was expecting more out of them this year, and they've lost. Like I'm not expecting them obviously like to win the whole thing, but they've lost games by larger margins than I thought. And I'm excited to see them play. They were really fun to watch last year, but I wouldn't be surprised if they dropped. But I do expect Slice to be the 5th team in that pool.
Yeah, Chaos is an interesting one. Julian Toyarkov has been a pretty good flex player for them all around. One that can play all 3 positions to a pretty solid level. So that's a good piece that Chaos has. Caleb Williams played beater for them last year, hasn't played the whole year due to ACL injury. But Caleb is a pretty good coach as well, in my opinion. He was my de facto coach for Baylor. Um, so Caleb, I think, is going to be able to cook up something for Chaos, at least make good game plans going in against all three of these teams. But right, whether the execution happens or not is another thing. Um, and I think it's going to depend on. I think they have the talent to compete. I think some of the top lines of maybe a Rain will be better than theirs, just on a talent for talent basis. But I think Chaos can muck it up enough to make it a game against any of these teams. I think I agree. I think Slice is probably the team to drop. Chaos is not immune from that. And you're right, we haven't seen them win big games against any of these teams. They've been close against DCQC, but they just haven't pulled it off yet. So we will see if that ends up being the case. Between Breakers and Vermont, I'm leaning Vermont in that match. Do either of you think that? Again, it's hard to know. I don't think any of us are familiar with Breakers. But we did have brought up travel. This will be a home tournament for Breakers. That could play a part in it. But I guess we'll see. I think the more interesting game in Pool Y, Boom Train and Dice. It could be easy to say, oh, Boom Train won 2 qualifiers, they're going to win this game. But can Dice pull it off? I think the answer is absolutely yes. How would that be the case? If Dice were to beat Boom Train, Ojas, I'm not going to tell you to expose trade secrets on Boom Train, but if Dice were going to get it done, how would they do it?
It's just me basing this off of memory, but if I remember this correctly, we haven't seen 2 or 3 of Dice's biggest names show up in a while. I hate to be the one bringing up, oh, if X players show up, if Y players show up.
Yeah.
However, one of my favorite people in the sport, John Jackson, if he can be there for Dice, that could be a game changer. Obviously, I expect that to be the closest game in pool play, at least in pool Y for club competitive. It might be the closest game for pool play, like amongst all pools. Super interesting to see, just like overall high level play, beaters doing beaters things, chases, running, high level defense, stops. I will sure be glued to my screen for that one, or I guess glued to the turf watching that in person.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a Leo Freed John Jackson duo would be tough to stop, even for the likes of Boom Train. One thing I've said on the channel for most of the year is that Heat has the highest floor of any club team, but they don't have the highest ceiling. I think a Boom Train, a Rain, a Dice has a higher ceiling than Heat does. Part of that is, which players are going to be available, who shows up and plays their game on their day. I think it may come down to that. And until we get to bracket play where we see these top 4 teams playing each other, I don't think it'll matter in terms of for Heat. But the ceiling of these teams, I think, is interesting because I think Boom Train has the highest ceiling of any team here. The question is, are they going to get there? Boom Train, at times, hasn't looked like the same team that we've been familiar with. They came down in January for Space City Invitational, played a set against Copperheads and Heat. Copperheads won a game against Boom Train. I'm pretty sure Heat won it, I think 2-1 in that series against Boom Train. So Boom Train left Houston with a 3-3 record, picked up losses to Heat and Copperheads, didn't have a full roster that day, and they've looked better since both national qualifier wins. But it's something that I keep at the back of my mind. Like, this is a Boom Train that we have seen before. And they should be having the combined roster thing with Trainwreck, all the pooled talent, and all that. But I think the floor for Boom Train, I think, is something to watch out for. I think Boom Train might have the highest variance of any team this weekend, other than Copperheads. Copperheads, in my opinion, you could tell me that they go 2-2 in groups and flame out in the playoffs. You could tell me Copperheads make the semifinals, and I'd believe both options. But let's go with the probability that it's going to be Wolves, Breakers, and Slice do not advance to bracket play. So bracket play for club competitive is interesting. How this works, to my understanding, is the best performing pool is getting assigned this pool P slot where they get 2 buys. Second best pool gets pool Q and then pool R, and they reseed everyone and mix everything around. There's a whole thing with what's the best performing, what's the quad ball differential, all of that. Similar to what we did with college, I'm just going to say um, who are the teams that we think are probably going to make the semifinals. Let's pick 4 teams that we think it's going to be. Is it the top 4, or who could make a run? And that might be matchup dependent, but who are the top 4 teams in your mind to make the semis, and who are some possible dark horse teams? Ojas, what do you think?
I think I would take Heat from Pool X, Boom from Pool Y, Rain from Pool Z. Now the question is, which pool performs better overall, Y or Z? Because I think it'll be between Dice and Copperheads for the 4th spot.
I would agree.
You know what? I am going to take the hot take here, and I'm gonna give it to Copperheads.
Ooh, okay. I like it.
I think that both of those teams make it. I don't think Rain makes it.
Interesting.
I
Okay,
don't love the
explain.
mercenary teams. I've never have. They have, and they just got formed. They've had good games, and it's hard to say that star power won't make those big plays. But as you said, Copperheads, they looked good like last year. I didn't know they existed going into last year, and I watched them play really good games. And I haven't obviously Rain first year of existence, but I wouldn't be surprised if those were the top 4 teams going into bracket and the last 4 teams in bracket play.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it may come down to a matchup in bracket play. Like, yeah, like who gets these automatic buys into the quarterfinals? Maybe it is like Copperheads have the better performing group, and so they automatically get the buy. But then, like, do they have to play a dice in the quarterfinals to advance? I think that's where it gets interesting. I think if we're saying who are the semifinals teams, I think Heat and Boom are probably shoo-ins to be there. Between Dice, Rain, and Copperheads, you've got to pick 2. It's hard to say. I'm gonna go with Dice and Copperheads. Um, I think if Copperheads played either a Rain or a Dice, Copperheads, in my opinion. So with Copperheads, what I've noticed all year, they're good for one upset, right? You can count on at least one during the weekend, maybe 2, but they're always good. They're always going to give you one. Maybe that occurs in pool play, but if it occurs in bracket play, I could see a situation where Copperheads are a quarterfinal team. They're playing Rain in the second round, and they're able to beat them. Maybe they lose to them in pool play, like maybe Rain goes 4-0, but maybe they play again in bracket play and get the win there. So I'm going to the final 4 of Heat, Copperheads, Dice, and Boom. Um, let's say for this example, it's Heat versus Dice on one side, Copperheads versus Boom on the other. For those 2 semifinals, who do you guys have advancing to the final?
I'd say Texas and Boom. I mean, I think Boom takes it over Copperheads. I think that's definitely the easier choice. They've looked really good this year. A lot of teams have, and it's like Copperheads have looked good as well. But Boom has looked like the best quad ball team in America this at least outside of Texas. But they've won the
Yeah.
big games. They've won the close games. They have the star power. So I think they take it over Copperheads, and then between Texas and Dice, that's definitely the closer one. But I still have Texas just
Mm.
because one vibes, like they look
Fair.
good. I know I have a feeling that they're gonna play good. Um, but then I wouldn't be surprised if Dice took it. They have like all the names that you could ever want, and it's hard to say that they're gonna go out without a fight.
Yeah.
I do agree with like most of that analysis, actually. What I will say is I think the closest games all weekend, or at least the games with most back and forth, I would say, will be Boom and Heat. I'm hoping that happens to be in the final, so a lot more people get to experience that. But that will be the best game to watch in the entire weekend because I would assume it is bound to happen. There is no way we go the entire weekend without watching a Boom Heat game.
I
I
certainly
would
hope.
be I would be very, very, very surprised if that happened to be the case. That would be a close one. I will also be excited for the Reigning Copperheads rematch from South Qualifier.
Yeah. Yeah, Rain Copperheads rematch, and then yeah, if we get a Boom Copperheads rematch, remember Copperheads beat Boom Train at last nationals, going undefeated in their group, pulling the upset,
Oh
and
yeah.
then beating Boom Train again at Space City Invitational in January. Boom Train did win other games in that series as well, but Copperheads have gotten their lick in every time. And right, it's easy to say, "Oh, Boom's going to win it this time." It's a high pressure scenario. Copperheads could do it, especially if they give you two upsets this weekend. But I think Boom Train is the safer choice. But between Heat and Dice, I think Heat will win it. I think y'all are right. I think it's gonna be a Heat Boom final. Um, Dice, I think, even if they have John Jackson, Leo Freed, Molly Potter, everybody, even if they have everyone available, I think Heat have the higher floor. I think they're a more established team right now. Dice being a new team, Heat has thrown everyone together. There's a lot of San Antonio Soldados players on this team. They've played with each other for a while. Um, I think Heat are going to get it done. I think not that they have by far and away the better beaters, but like Baldemar Nunez is one of the better beaters in the sport, in my opinion. And then you have chaser, really good two-way chasers, like a Jay Stewart, like an Alyssa Vialba, who are great options on offense, but are also can get you a big stop on defense. And in these high pressure scenarios, sometimes the stops mean more than the goals. I mean, they say defense wins championships, and sometimes that's the case in quad balls. You get that last second stop that opens the door for a fast break the other way. And that's something that Heat does really well is they fast break incredibly well. And if they get you going the other way, it's going to be hard to stop them. So a Heat Boom final, in my opinion, ultimately depends on Boom Train. Boom is the X factor. How does Boom play? Because in my opinion, Heat is going to show up. It's going to be, does Boom Train show up to play? And I know they have the pooled rosters with Trainwreck is what it sounds like. So Boom Train on paper may have the more talented roster. They won two qualifiers. They've got a lot of things going for them. They'd probably be undefeated up until this point on the weekend, as would Heat. If we get a Heat Boom final, who is your champion?
I want to say Boom. That's like what my heart says, but like my brain is like we just saw this matchup last summer, and I think Chicago might have had like the biggest choke job I've ever seen.
Mm.
Um, well, that was rough to watch, but I think Boom does have the capacity to be the better team that day, but Texas just won that matchup. Texas has looked like they've looked dominant.
Yeah.
So honestly, I have no idea. I think it's going to be a really great game to watch, though. I'll absolutely be watching it from home, so I'm praying USQ puts on a good show. uh, I don't know. Any of you guys commentating that? I know you guys got experience doing that. I
No,
doubt it,
I
though.
wish. I'm not. I'm not
Whoever
going.
it whoever it is, though, make my home viewing experience absolutely banger.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like the biggest toss up of all of these.
Yeah, I will not be commentating. However, I will be trying to get the audience as hype as possible for one team or the other. Definitely could not
Completely
tell you which
unbiased.
one. Completely unbiased. No, no stakes in this game whatsoever.
No, none.
No, but even keeping my biases aside, I think Boom will have the final laugh uh, between Heat and the back and forth going on. It'll regardless be a great game to watch. I will absolutely be hyping up the audience to see if we can have some audience battles going on. That is one of my favorite viewership experiences in quad ball when the
Uh,
audience is so hyped, cheering for one team or the other.
yeah. It's gonna be this. I agree with your assessment, Ojas. This is gonna be the best game of the weekend. Whether we get it in the finals or the semis, Hopefully we get it at some point. But I'm agreeing with Levan here. I'm going with Heat. Not because I don't think Boom can do it, because I think if Boom is firing on all cylinders, I think they will. But I've seen Boom lose games that they shouldn't too many times this year. And I think recency bias would say Boom Train's got that figured out. They've got the 2 national qualifier wins, and they're adding more talent to their roster. And I just can't silence the voice in my head that says they've lost too many games that they shouldn't. Heat haven't lost those games. Heat have barely lost at all this year. They've lost a game to Boom. They went 2-1 in Space City when they played earlier in the year. But I think Heat are going to get it done. I think they're going to be the team that just makes that one extra play. Of course, this is a game that's going to be like a 145, 130, hopefully, at least, golden goal scenario. That would be electric. I'm taking Heat, which means Ojas here unfortunately outvoted, although Boom definitely has got a shot at it. Any other thoughts that y'all want to add about club competitive or any of the games before we wrap up?
I guess if I was to say anything, it would be like the best club team will absolutely become evident at least early day 2. We're gonna see them play against those top competition, which we haven't seen it in a while, at least those big games. And we're gonna see who each team is bringing. We're gonna see how they're gonna play, and I think it's become more evident who's gonna be the best, or at least who's gonna be the favorite. At least late day 1, early day 2, we'll have a better idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's accurate. Because then we'll know, right, exactly who all is coming, who's really on their game that weekend. These quarterfinal games are going to be very telling. Well, thank you both for coming on. To recap, we're going with Heat to win club competitive. I think, did we say Virginia to win D1? I'll be honest, I already
Yeah.
forgot.
Yeah, we
Virginia to win D1 college, Brown to win D2, and Seattle to win Club Open. Those are our champions for official Snapshot predictions. Thank you again both for coming on. It was great to have both of you and their insights. And I'm sure you'll be on again at some point. But if not, or certainly not before Nationals, we hope that Nationals games go well. Ojas, I hope everything goes well at the field. Me and Levan will be watching from home. So thank you both again for coming on.
It was great.
Thank you so much for watching, and thank you very much to Levan and Ojas for coming on the show. Please hit subscribe if you have not already. More content coming next week. Very excited to see how Nationals all shapes out. I'll see you in the next one. This is Jackson signing off.